Right now, somewhere between 40 and 60% of American workers are lying awake at night, worried that a machine is going to take their job. That's not an exaggeration, that's the actual data. Over half of US workers now believe AI will eliminate more jobs than it creates. 9 in 10 job seekers say they're worried about it. And if you're one of them, I need you to hear something before we go any further. Your fear is rational. I'm not here to tell you AI isn't a real threat to real careers, because it is. But I am here to give you something almost nobody else in this conversation is offering you. Not false comfort, not denial, but a 2,000-year-old mental rule that a Roman emperor used to stay unshaken while his entire world was being rewritten by forces far more brutal than a software update. His name was Marcus Aurelius, and what he figured out applies to your situation more directly than you'd think. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what to do with this fear, instead of just carrying it around. Let's start with the truth. Nobody wants to say out loud, you cannot stop AI from reshaping your industry. You cannot personally control whether your company adopts automation, whether your role gets restructured, whether an algorithm can now do in 10 seconds what took you 10 hours. That is simply not in your hands. And pretending otherwise, hoping it'll pass you by, hoping your industry is different, hoping if you just don't think about it, it won't happen, that's not resilience, that's denial, and denial always collapses the moment reality knocks on the door. So, if control over the outcome isn't available to you, what is? This is exactly the question Marcus Aurelius spent his entire reign answering, not about technology, but about something equally uncontrollable, total civilizational collapse happening in real time around him. Here's what most people don't know about Marcus Aurelius. He didn't inherit a stable, peaceful empire. He inherited chaos. Within years of becoming emperor, a plague swept through Rome that would eventually kill an estimated 5 million people, a death toll that emptied entire towns and forced him to conscript slaves and gladiators into the army, because there weren't enough soldiers left alive. At the same time, Germanic tribes were invading from the north in numbers Rome hadn't faced in generations. His own trusted general, a man he considered a friend, attempted to overthrow him while he was away on campaign. And through all of it, the systems Marcus had grown up trusting, the old order, the old certainties about how the empire worked, were being torn apart faster than anyone could adapt to. Sound familiar? Replace plague with AI, replace invading tribes with economic disruption, and replace old imperial order with the career path your parents told you would keep you safe, and you're looking at the same psychological situation, just wearing different clothes. Marcus didn't have the luxury of controlling any of it. What he had, and what he wrote about obsessively in his private journal, never intending anyone else to read it, was a rule for where to put his attention when the ground itself was shifting under him. The rule is called the Dichotomy of Control, and it comes from Stoic philosophy, specifically from a philosopher named Epictetus, who Marcus studied closely. The rule states that everything in existence falls into 2 categories: things within your control and things outside your control. Within your control, your effort, your skills, your choices, your response, your character, how you spend your time, what you learn, who you become. Outside your control, the economy, corporate decisions, what technology gets invented, whether a specific company keeps or cuts your role, other people's choices, the timeline of change itself. Suffering happens specifically when you pour your energy into the second category, the things you cannot move no matter how hard you push, instead of the first. Let's make this concrete. because philosophy that doesn't translate into action isn't worth much. Right now, if you're anxious about AI, that anxiety is probably attaching itself to things you cannot control. Whether your company will adopt AI faster than expected, whether your entire industry gets automated within 5 years, whether you'll be able to find work at all if it happens, what the job market will look like in 2030. None of that is knowable, and none of it is yours to decide. Every hour you spend doom-scrolling articles about AI replacing your profession. Every night you lie awake running worst-case scenarios about a future that hasn't happened yet. That's energy poured directly into the second category, into the pile of things that will not move no matter how much you worry about them. Now, here's what is actually within your control. And this is where the Stoic rule stops being comforting philosophy and becomes a practical strategy. You control whether you build skills that make you harder to replace. You control whether you learn to work alongside AI tools instead of ignoring them out of fear or resentment. You control your network, your relationships, the judgment and taste and human connection you bring to your work that no model can fully replicate. You control your savings rate, your financial cushion, your plan B. You control how you spend the next 90 days. None of that guarantees an outcome. Nothing ever does, and anyone selling you certainty is lying to you. But it is the only lever you actually have, and Stoicism's entire argument is that pulling the lever you have fully and without hesitation is infinitely more powerful than obsessing over the levers you don't. Marcus Aurelius wrote something in his journal that applies here almost word for word. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He wasn't writing about job security. He was writing about a plague he couldn't cure and an empire he couldn't fully protect. But the mechanism is identical. He couldn't stop the plague. He could control how he led, who he became under pressure, and where he directed his energy each day despite the chaos around him. That's not a metaphor for your situation, it's the exact same equation. Let's talk about what this looks like practically, because I don't want to leave you with an inspiring idea and nothing to actually do with it. There are 3 moves I want you to make, starting this week, based on this rule. The first move is what I call the audit. Take 15 minutes and write down every AI-related worry currently living in your head. Be specific, not vague dread, but actual sentences. I'm worried my role will be automated within 2 years. I'm worried I don't have the skills to pivot if that happens. I'm worried I'm too old to retrain. Get it all out of your head and onto paper. Then, next to each one, write either within my control or outside my control. You will notice something immediately. Most of the worry is about outcomes, timelines, and decisions other people will make. Almost none of it is about your own actions. That gap, once you see it clearly, is where all your wasted mental energy has been leaking out. The second move is redirection, and this is the step people skip. The same way Marcus never just released control without immediately refocusing on what remained his to shape. Take everything you marked within my control and turn it into one small, concrete action this week. Not a 5-year plan. A 5-year plan built entirely on fear usually collapses within a month. One action. Maybe it's spending 30 minutes learning how to actually use the AI tools relevant to your field so you understand them instead of fearing them from a distance. Maybe it's reaching out to one person in your network you haven't spoken to in months. Maybe it's finally starting the course you bookmarked 8 months ago. The size of the action doesn't matter nearly as much as the direction. Every ounce of energy you are spending on the uncontrollable now has somewhere real to go. The third move is the hardest, and it's the one Marcus practiced daily until it became instinct, catching yourself in real time. The next time you feel that specific tightness in your chest, reading an article about AI layoffs, pause before you spiral. Ask yourself the question directly. Is what I'm feeling right now about something I can act on or something I'm only imagining? If it's imagined, a future scenario that hasn't happened and that you can't currently influence, consciously redirect your attention back to today's action. This will feel unnatural and effortful the first dozen times you try it. That's expected. Marcus wasn't born with this skill either. He trained it daily for years, specifically because the mind doesn't hold on to a lesson after hearing it once. It needs repetition. The same way a muscle needs repeated use to actually grow stronger. I want to address something directly, because I think it's the honest, human part of this conversation that most content in this space skips over. Some of you watching this might lose your job to AI. I'm not going to pretend that possibility doesn't exist, because false comfort isn't Stoicism. It's the opposite of it. Marcus Aurelius didn't tell himself the plague wasn't real, or that his empire wasn't genuinely under threat. He accepted the full weight of the danger, and still chose where to place his effort inside it. That's the actual model here, not blind optimism, but clear-eyed acceptance of risk paired with total commitment to the part of the outcome you can actually influence. If the worst happens, the version of you who spent this year building skills, strengthening relationships, and staying financially prepared will be in an entirely different position than the version of you who spent this year frozen in anxious inaction. Both versions face the same uncontrollable risk. Only one of them used the time well. There's a deeper layer to this too, one that goes beyond just career survival. Marcus Aurelius wrote extensively about the fact that everything is temporary, and every empire, every position, every certainty eventually changes or ends. He didn't write this to depress himself. He wrote it to loosen his grip on the idea that any external structure could ever be the true source of his stability. If you build your entire sense of security around one job, one company, one specific version of your career staying exactly the same forever, you are building your peace of mind on something that was never stable to begin with. AI or no AI, companies restructure, industries shift. This has always been true. AI has simply made the shift faster and more visible than it's ever been before. The people who weather this kind of change aren't the ones who found some magic way to freeze the world in place. They're the ones who built their stability internally, in their skills, their adaptability, their character, rather than externally in a job title that was always going to be temporary anyway. This is, in the end, the entire Stoic answer to a world being rewritten by forces you didn't choose and can't stop. Not denial, not blind faith that everything will be fine, not paralysis either. A clear, disciplined redirection of your energy toward the only thing that has ever actually been yours, your response, your effort, your daily choices, your character under pressure. AI is real. The disruption is real. Your fear is a reasonable response to a genuinely uncertain moment. But the emperor who led Rome through plague, invasion, and betrayal without losing himself in the process left us a rule that works exactly as well today as it did then. Because the actual mechanism of human suffering hasn't changed in 2,000 years, we only suffer twice as much when we fight for control over things that were never ours to hold. instead of pouring everything we have into the ground that is. So here's what I want you to actually do after this video ends. Do the audit tonight. 15 minutes, write down every AI-related fear. Sort it into controllable and uncontrollable. Pick one small action from the controllable pile and do it this week, not someday, this week. And the next time that familiar wave of dread shows up while you're scrolling another headline about automation, catch it, ask the question, and redirect. You cannot control whether AI reshapes your industry. You can control who you become while it does. That was true for an emperor facing the collapse of the world he knew, and it's true for you, right now, facing a version of the exact same fear. If this gave you something real to hold on to, subscribe. I'm building this channel around exactly this kind of practical, honest philosophy for the moment we're actually living in, not the moment we wish we were living in. And if you know someone who's been quietly carrying this same fear, send them this video. Sometimes the rule that changes everything is simply the one nobody's told them yet. I'll see you in the next one.